business leaders in the region and globally play a critical role in ensuring that inclusion is a core to their workplace culture and their companies are well represented of the communities that they actually serve. But now we must move beyond promises. We must move beyond posts and hashtags and put words into action. On our first panel of the day, no pressure, guys. I felt that on your faces. Mission Possible, Opportunity for Everyone. This panel will discuss diversity, equality, and inclusion in the workplace and how business leaders such as yourselves can really make a difference. Please join me in welcoming on the stage Ayman Mokhtar, again, Regional President for the Middle East, Turkey, and the Levant at Viatris. I would have told you to take a seat. Kindah Sais, who's the Global Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion for the Middle East and Africa at Boeing International. Rosanna Duncan is the Chief Diversity Officer at Palladium. And our moderator, I'm so pleased to see you face to face again, having interviewed you on one of our shows, Feras Majed, Vice President of HR and Communications at GBM. You'll have about 45 minutes for your panel. Apologies, here you go. And we have one more panelist. I'm going to blame that on my eyesight. I did say that I'm now wearing glasses and I didn't recognize you. It wasn't your mask, it was my eyesight. Please welcome Suaad Alshamsi. She's the Aviation Advisor of ORAT at Etihad Airways.
Thank you, Jesse, and I'd like to welcome my panelists again for joining me on this very important topic, Mission Possible, Opportunity for Everyone. It's very important that we actually take a step back and say diversity and inclusion is not a new topic, but in 2020, it's really taken organizations to have a really good look at diversity and inclusion, because it doesn't only make business sense, but it's the right thing to do to create a really sustainable future. And I know Mr. Ayman spoke during the opening note about technology, but technology without people really doesn't get or fulfill sustainable innovation. So I'd like to start off with Dr. Rosanna. You haven't got a mic?
No. We'll get you one.
I'll get you one. So I'll start with Dr. Suaad, who was forgotten off this panel, but she's a welcome addition. And you're the pioneer as one of the first female aircraft engineers in the UAE. Yeah. And I would like to ask you about your journey and how you're contributing to encourage more female participation in the aviation industry.
First of all, thank you for letting me be part of this discussion panel. And I think after a long time, this is the first an event we can talk about the sustainability and women empowerment. Being the first Emirati female aircraft engineer give me the responsibility and make me feel proud first that women can enter into a field. A lot of people, many years, think that she cannot, she will not be able to continue. I'm in this field 16 years. I started exactly before that when I decided to be an aeronautical engineer. And usually when you decided to be in a field like this, the first question will come, can you? Is it there a place for a woman? And why you want to do it? And the first answer always I keep saying, we need to change the image of the woman that she cannot be what she wants to be. If you are passionate about things, I believe if you can dream it, you can do it and you can achieve it. Starting my dream, it's give us a challenge as a woman, as a local from United Arab Emirates, as an Arab. And when I traveled to United Kingdom and London, I notice it's not only the Arab, as well the expat and different nationality, they face the same problem that in any mechanical field, you are not welcome. And the question was why? They think that we give them a full responsibility of the man. So we wanted to change that the woman there, she's equal to the man, she can work as a man and she can focus more as well. Now we have plenty of women in aeronautical engineering, but not high percent, and we hope in that after all this journey, I see not only Suaad Alshamsi as pioneer or a role model, I wish to find a lot of ladies in this field.
Suaad, I've been following you also on social media and you're very active. Can you just tell us what you've done personally to really drive your message, because you were a pioneer who's gone through this glass ceiling and to be the first engineer? How have you encouraged others?
In the beginning, when you get this title, you are the first aircraft engineer, the first female in the Gulf country, and then when you continue, you get a lot of titles. I finished my PhD in aeronautical engineering, and the first people reaction, are you crazy? And the question why? So I wanted to change it. When I started using my social media, I wanted to show the world that there are opportunity for women in a field like the aviation industry, not like only as aircraft engineer, pilots, medical, aviation medical, sustainability, a lot of field. People, they don't know that there are a lot of opportunity for women in the aviation industry. When you think about aviation, you think it's just a private sector and the long timing hour. So, and when I start using the social media, I wanted to show the women that there are a lot of opportunity as well. You can enjoy your career. It's not a normal routine career in aviation. If you will go to talk to a pilot, to engineer, to cabin crew, to doctor, a lot who's coming under this field, they will tell you how they are so enjoyable and have this passion. So using social media is, I think, it's a time and the link and to reach to the people easier. When we want to have an idea, when we wanted to change a lot of policies or we want to change an idea, the easier way to use your social media. Rather than you take a message from department to a person, I think is the technology, and all, if you can see people, it's easier to use your phone rather than using your email.
Thank you. Dr. Rosanna, how do you think the pandemic has changed the global D&I focus and of flexible working has become commonplace? So yes. Some people treat it as a treat and as an advantage, and others see it as a menace. So how can top management address this global issue?
Hear me?
No?
Yes.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. So one of the challenges I think that organisations have had during the pandemic around this whole sort of notion of flexibility and work-life balance is that there's often a preconceived idea that if people are working from home and they're being given an opportunity to work from home, that this is necessarily going to be a positive thing for everybody. But the reality is the people who work in our organisations are diverse, their needs are diverse, and their styles of working are diverse. It's really important for organisations to understand that when you have a workforce, you need to listen to find out exactly what will fit the individuals and also the business. So one of the challenges we have in organisations is that there are many people who are very disciplined, feel very comfortable working from home, and then there are others who actually miss the working environment and the interaction that going to an office actually brings. So organisations moving forward need to be thinking about whether or not, what the models of work will look like to ensure that, there is better inclusion and people's needs are met as well as the business needs are met. One of the challenges we've seen in the shift in terms of D&I during the pandemic has been this focus on mental health and really trying to understand and sort of break that link between people just assuming if you work from home then you're going to have better mental health and better work-life balance. We're seeing a lot of evidence of burnout, and we're seeing a lot of evidence of where work is just seeping into people's personal and family lives. So organisations have to really listen and understand what is happening with their people and thinking about moving forward. Is the future a hybrid, flexible model whereby you will then attract a diverse range of talent rather than restricting yourselves to either a work-at-home model or a model whereby you ask people to solely work from home, because by having that sort of restrictive practice, you're going to reduce the diversity of the people who want to work for your organisation. So managers need to be sort of cognizant of that.
I'd like to follow that on because hiring a diverse workforce is step one in every organization. People say we've got diverse workforce, we've got many nationalities, but retaining them and ensuring actual equal treatment and inclusion where they bring their best selves to work is the main challenge. How at Palladium are you ensuring that at a global level?
So I think at Palladium, there's a few key things, and I could probably talk about this all day, but I'm going to try and stay focused on this, and I'm going to concentrate on what I see as one of the biggest challenges where you can get the most leverage, and which is having leadership accountability and buy-in and transparency. Okay, so what we've done at Palladium is that we've ensured, so my role is in the executive team. I have the mandate of the CEO. Some organisations fail with their diversity strategies because they put the diversity person either in HR, which is often a sort of common approach, or when they do put that, they have a person, they recruit that person at way too junior a level for them to actually able to have an impact. So the critical things we've done at Palladium is make sure that diversity has a place at the top table in that executive team. But then what we've also done is really hold leaders to account. So on a global basis, what we've done is implemented key performance indicators around diversity and inclusion. We've also implemented for our senior leaders personal KPIs or key results areas that are directly linked to their performance-related pay. So we're using those mechanisms to help drive change. So we're conveying it's the right thing to do to promote equity, diversity and inclusion, but there's also a business imperative. And also for our leaders, there's obviously a personal investment in that too. So sort of adding to that, in terms, not only are we asking our leaders to be proactive and, as I said, have these personal KPIs, we also have forums where they have to, on a quarterly basis, stand up and talk about progress on diversity and inclusion in their region, talk about equal pay, talk about representation, talk about the initiatives that are being led in their region. They have to stand up on a quarterly basis in forums where they can be asked any question and can be held up. So having this accountability and transparency is important, and then through having leaders who take accountability, that helps you to create that culture whereby you do have more inclusion and people do feel that they can bring their whole selves to work.
Thank you. Kindah, I think you having a role which is unique in this part of the world as a global equity, diversity and inclusion leader in the Middle East. I'd like to really tap into your knowledge because technologies are shaping the future of work transnationally and the regions, but however this region is governed by strict labor laws and social norms. So what challenges have you faced in your role in this part of the world, and how does that implement the global implementation at Boeing?
Thank you, Feras. That's a heavy question. Yeah, so first of all, I want to thank the Forbes team for having us. This is a great opportunity to be here. It's a pleasure being here today. To go into your question, so for the first time in history, in Boeing's history, we've made a commitment this year to transparently share our diversity metrics, our data, and we've done that through publishing our very first diversity and inclusion public report. We've also made a commitment on closing representation gaps for women and minorities across the entire enterprise. Now, in order for us to do that, we need data-driven strategies and efforts and metrics. So what we've done is, with this data, it allows us to assess where we're at, what our barriers are, where we want to be, and how we can get there. So what we've done is we've leveraged technology. We've introduced a couple of very high-tech new systems that would enable employees to self-identify their genders, nationalities, ethnicities, and so on. And this has been proven very successful in the US and across the enterprise, because this data, having this diversity data metrics and breakdown, allows us to understand and assess and identify the hot pots within an employee's life cycle in the company. So from the very beginning, from the moment of new hire orientation, even applications, and those, we can also evaluate applicants and candidates who are applying for different requisitions in terms of minority-based levels and so on. up till the middle of the life cycle, which also includes things like promotions, advancements, development, mentorship programs, allyship, and so on, all the way until the very end, which is retention, attrition, exit interviews, and so on. So these types of systems has allowed us to do breakthrough efforts and move the needle within D&I across the world now. So we can see here how technology is changing the landscape of the D&I space. However, when we look at other countries outside of the US, in different parts of the world and international, due to different legislations, global privacy restrictions and laws around different corners of the world, this may be a little bit of a challenge for companies to be able to openly collect this type of data about their employee database. So it's difficult. It may be less easy or more difficult a bit to ask employees to identify whether they're male or female or ethnicity or nationality and so on. And this data is really crucial. I mean, we found ways to work around it and look at the aggregates and to better tailor our efforts to shape where we want to get to. But overall, having these types of data really enables employees and employers as well to set targets, to look at their where to play areas, identify these big rocks, and set tailored efforts, strategically tailored efforts to address those.
I'd like to follow on this question about also female representation across aerospace, engineering, defense is traditionally very low. What steps are Boeing taking to really empower women from this region as well to really drive the numbers up in this regard?
So I love that question actually. Thank you so much for asking that, because we have been seeing a lot more of women engagement within society. I mean, looking at this region, 57% I believe of women are in STEM are from the MENA region. 59% of students who are in computer science in Saudi Arabia are women as well. And I'm actually, being a Saudi national living in the UAE, these numbers make me proud because they're all stemmed from a governmental push. We've seen Vision 2025 in the UAE, we've seen Vision 2030. All of these government pushes are creating more opportunities, educational opportunities and work opportunities for women. So this is something that's very close to Boeing, gender inclusion and women empowerment as well, and developing them is a special focus area for us. So we've done it internally and externally. So if I look at externally, we've had technical fellowship efforts to promote these efforts to make it more visible for women and minorities across the enterprise. In Saudi Arabia, for example, we've built strategic partnerships with Princess Noura University, the largest female university in the world, pretty much. We've supported them in building their engineering colleges via a variety of curriculum enrichment programs, as well as grants, as well as fellowship programs as well. So, I mean, those are some of our external efforts only. And then we also internally, I mean, we've developed a science-based training. We call it Seek, Speak, and Listen. And the idea here is it encourages leaders and managers and all employees to seek out pockets of anxiety within our employees, actively listen, and then action those listening with empathy. So, I mean, if you think about it, how many times has somebody come up to you and said something, and you're in the back of your head, you're already planning your answer? Are you really listening to that person? I mean, that is a big question. How many times have employees or people talk to you and say they've been through X, Y, and Z in this state, and then you're already in the back of your head, you would jump ahead and say, yeah, I know how that feels. That's, I mean, for us, we try to minimize that and push for empathetic listening. Because only when we have excellent listening skills, better empathy, we create more opportunities for inclusion. So we've developed those trainings, deployed it across the enterprise. We've done roundtable discussions with women in engineering to identify microaggressions, unconscious biases that they have been encountering. We've scaled it up and addressed and leveraged our women networks and as well as our employee resource groups to amplify the D&I messaging and amplify sessions and awareness sessions and trainings around unconscious bias, microaggressions. We've done almost 8,000 inclusion leadership trainings around the company, just to make sure that managers see that it is their part and their responsibility to get the best out of their people, whether it's within engineering or not. So we're heavily focused and fixated on empowering women, building gender equity, whether it's in engineering, women in STEM, or across other fields in the industry as well.
Thank you, Kindah. Mr. Ayman, I want to actually go with a slightly different slant. You know, you're coming from the healthcare industry with Viatris, and I want to take something from your opening note where you mentioned that health for everyone. Is this really mission possible? And what are the challenges that you're envisaging, and how do we seize the opportunities that the pandemic has also laid bare to us?
Well, thank you for your question, but allow me to step back one step before I go into the answering the healthcare expert. So to be honest, I'm just reflecting while the great leaders around me are talking, and I felt really impressed, and I felt that the diversity is a mission possible. I'm sitting in a panel today proud of 3 great leaders that are sitting next to me, and I'm the only man on the panel. You're moderating it. I look at the table where my team sits, and I see 3 leaders, women and 1 man. And again, I don't say this is the norm, and I don't say that as an organization I am there, but I'm really thrilled and excited to have such level of representation from female leadership, and I'm extremely biased to it because I have a daughter. And my dream, I reimagine the future where I see my daughter sitting like those leaders. So thank you so much for being here, and thanks for enlightening us with such forum. So I'll follow that by something that, and I will come to your questions. So I follow that by something that another great leader from my company called Linda shared it, which is if 80% currently today in the executive board are men, and you're still expecting females only to play the role of leveraging and getting the diversity and inclusion corrected, you still have a long way to go. Till we have champions like myself, I'm proud of it, to champion that and make sure that it sits inside me as a real thing that I want to achieve. So that's a reflection on the diversity and inclusion. And I will move to what you asked. Like the diversity and inclusion was a dream, and the balance was a dream a few years ago. I think it's mission possible today, and I think we are on the right way. Very much like what we talk about the healthcare. If healthcare for everyone is mission possible, it is absolutely a mission possible. And I'll tell you my belief why it has to be, it's not only a luxury. I'll take the zoom on into the pandemic, and I will tell you that we have vaccinated so far 80% of the developed countries. Are we done yet? We're not. Because we continue to see variants that are being developed in some other countries. And those variants, unfortunately, might be faced with a different level of effectiveness on efficacy on the current vaccines. So, to be honest, it's like a mandate. It's either health for all, or the alternative is that you continue to see what we have seen and you continue to live through it year over year. And unfortunately, you all know that the WHO declared that 2022 might be a potential another year for pandemic. Now, it's true mission possible because it takes people to work together and overcome the challenges that you asked me to cite some of them. One of the biggest challenges that we also see is the fact that the prioritization of the healthcare funding and looking at this healthcare as a strategic sector. So there's a good job done so far, and we are on the way. But till healthcare gets into the priority in the government eyes and in the eyes of everyone, like a strategic element that I have to invest in, and I have to invest in equally, like defense or any other sectors that I'm investing in, you continue to see the dragging and the mission becomes more and more challenging. The second challenge is, of course, not the funding, but the mindset. You really need to move from the mindset of only treating. Because I have zoomed into my introduction into the numbers, and I asked it, and by the way, I'm not surprised that I didn't see a single hand believe that $5 investment could save millions, and then I said billions, and the reality it is trillions. Because according to the Global Monitoring Board, they said that if the world would have invested $5 only per person, we would have saved $16 trillion invested from the global. So imagine how important prevention is. Is it reality? It's not. The challenge today that we continue to treat, but we continue to do less and less when it comes to wellness and prevention. So that's one of the second challenges that I foresee. And the third is, I will repeat it, which is health for all. Nations have to come together and believe that equal distribution of health is good for them before it becomes just a noble cause or something that you aspire to do. So distribution of health has to be for everybody, and that's the mission that we take to the heart at Viatris. So it is mission possible.
Thank you, Mr. Ayman. I think I do want to echo your sentiments and about women empowerment, and it's great that we're seeing a diverse group, not only on the panel, but also in the audience. And I want to go back to Dr. Suaad as well. There's also a big commitment now from major airlines in the region to really increase the female participation in the workforce, and they've put numbers between 20 and 30%. How do you think those vocal endorsements and commitment at that high level from major airlines to get women into the workforce at all levels, how's that going to drive the agenda going forward?
Well, support is not only from the bigger airline, even from the manufacturing. One of our big support for non-profit organization, we are having Boeing. They support us from more than 6 years now. If we consider that each airline, and the biggest airline I will be talking, 70% of the women between 20 to 30 years old. So the main airline now, they are focusing on women empowerment because those women, they need to be planned and prepared for high top management. If we consider many airlines and many companies, if you will think 1% or maximum 3% women as a board member and the rest they are male. And considering why, the question was started from the policy being putting and the trust for the woman to be empowered as to be a leader. Coming back from a field is, as I said, is aviation industry. 90% used to be for a man dominant, and to have a woman in this field, we need to build the trust and the policy, change some of the policy to make women capable to be in this field. 70%, as I mentioned, to 75%, 20 years to 30 years. One of the biggest airlines they commit to have in 2025 between 20% to 30% women in a management. But we need to plan, train those women to be a leader, give them the opportunity. From my side, my suggestion and my opinion, not only the women, as a male, to respect, to have a woman beside him. This is the challenges we are facing. A lot of women, they are able, capable. I do believe, and forgive me for what I'm saying, if women can run a house with a husband, with the children, and again, she can change her heels from high heels to safety shoes like me, slipper, she can run and she can be a leader. In a field like aviation industry, and you will see the changes, it's just the chance. I think it's the time to see these challenges, to change it to a chance, and we'll see the positivity and the advantage of this.
Thank you. I think that's a great answer, and I want to follow on with Dr. Rosanna. I think the region has come a long way with regards to pay equity across gender and race, but still the SMBs and local businesses tend to lag behind. How can corporates work with local governments to create more awareness around the topic and also overcome the bias that Dr. Suaad says, because there are inherent biases that also prevent us from actually fulfilling DE&I initiatives?
So for me, in terms of equal pay, it's really interesting because often when people think about equal pay, they tie in the discussion around legislative frameworks and so on. So I think for me, the first point for organizations is understanding that having pay equity within the organization is not just, as we talked about earlier, the right thing to do. It makes business sense because what it will actually help to do is attract more diverse, more top talent and actually retain that talent too. So I think in terms of thinking, what can larger organizations do or business leaders do, it's really about showcasing the benefits, I think, of having equitable pay. But from a sort of personal organizational perspective, it really is key that organizations understand what it is what they're trying to do in their equal pay reporting and actually develop and adopt a methodology which makes sense to them. So what we've done at Palladium is because we wanted to look at equitable pay from a global perspective, We understand that we're operating in different environments where there are currency challenges, there are also fluctuations, challenges around different market rates. So we actually introduced a methodology that would help us actually, what I feel, more accurately look at equitable pay, rather than just sort of adopting an average approach, which is the standardized methodology, but actually looking more in depth at men and women's pay and also ethnicity in pay within specific bands and being able to compare that information internationally. And what we've done, I think, with our thinking on this is we've in the communities where we operate, we've taken forward discussions around that methodology and really pressed on other organizations to really look at equal pay in a meaningful way, because I think there are so many discussions just around equal pay, but we don't really unpack what that means. So I think a starting point is for organizations to understand their own organizational and global context, adopt a methodology which suits, which actually gives real information and real data which they can track in terms of change. There should always be a continued pressure, if you like, to ensure that, you know, in the countries where we operate, that there is legislation around equitable pay. But I find that sometimes organizations hide behind either the inefficiency or the deficits within equal pay legislation which exists, or hide behind the fact that it doesn't exist. And what we're trying to do at Palladium is, rather than sort of have a level of compliance with legislative frameworks, we're looking towards striving towards good practice. So I would say that the key thing is around developing appropriate methodologies, and sharing that good practice, sharing your story as an organization and the progress that you make. So that will hopefully ignite other organizations to do the same. And as I said, legislation is very important, but we shouldn't use it as an excuse not to move forward.
Thank you. Kindah, I'd like to just build on what Dr. Rosanna was saying in terms of what programs are actually being done at, for example, if you can give us a live example from Boeing, to really push the inclusion part. We've talked a lot about the diversity part, but the inclusion part, which is sometimes hard to measure. Can you just give us a few ideas, because you're giving us real practical tips for those who are here and also who are sitting virtually? I know it's a hard question as well, but I think you've got a title of global diversity, and all of us want to pick your brains today as well.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, happy to bounce off ideas with the panel and the team. So for Boeing, and just to set the context, I mean, for Boeing, our focus is not just diversity and inclusion, it's beyond that. We focus on equity mostly. And just for the sake of awareness, I mean, a lot of people, there's a misconception in this part of the world where people kind of sometimes think that equality and equity are the same thing. Well, when we say that equality is pretty much giving everybody the same thing, but equity is acknowledging and understanding that people have different starting points in their careers and their journeys. So it's acknowledging their needs, understanding their wants and needs and the help that they need, and giving them the tools and resources based on their needs that they need in order to be successful, to grow, to get those equal opportunities and succeed. I mean, it's even part of our department's name, Global Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And it doesn't hurt to call ourselves Jedi. So that's what we always do in the company. But I mean, ultimately, it's about creating equal opportunities for everybody. Hence, people tend to succeed. And we all want to be successful, right? I mean, I just remember a story that I was once speaking at an event at the office in the States, and it was wear your favorite sports shirt to work day, sports team to work day. And I looked around the room and everybody was wearing a jersey or a t-shirt of a winning team. Back then it was the Seahawks in the States because they won the championship. But everybody was wearing a t-shirt or a jersey that was affiliated with a winning team. So we all want to be affiliated. It made me realize that we all want to be affiliated with winning teams. And if you think about it, like market-wise, prices fluctuate depending on how if a sports team wins or loses. Like Nike had to renegotiate its pricing scheme when Beckham left Manchester, right? I mean, their merchandise changed, the pricing's changed. So technically, we all want to be linked to people who are successful. We all want to feel affiliated to them because it makes us feel included. It makes us feel that there's a sense of belonging there. So we tend to focus on building equity and creating opportunities for all to a point, and it's such an important key for us to a point that we've even included it in our diversity strategy. So, and when we talk about equity, I'm talking about building fairness, transparency, and ensuring that all of our processes in the company are equitable, whether it comes to recruiting, gender-neutral job descriptions on contracts or applications, to create mentorship and the allyship programs, understanding the microaggressions and literally seeking out the pockets of anxiety that our employees have and creating those greater opportunities for inclusion. When it comes to understanding the cultural agility, when we have expats who need to fly into the region, before they fly in, we need to understand that they may have some form of anxiety before moving into this part of the world. And so to bridge those cultural gaps, we do cultural agility trainings, awareness sessions, do's and don'ts, tips and tricks to be able to make them feel that they are welcome, they feel that they have a sense of belonging when they do come in there. They're not coming to a base country, a temporary base country, they're coming to a new home. Very privileged to have presidents for this entire region who are true ED&I advocates and supporters of and championing the concept of inclusion, given the nature of the UAE and the culture that we're in.
Thank you. Thank you. I think people, I'm sure in this audience will definitely be connecting with you to really pick your brains, because I think 5 minutes is not enough for you to really answer this question fully, but thank you for giving us some insight. I want to go back to you, Mr. Ayman, and I think the private sector has been tasked with driving better healthcare, and it's been in the spotlight more than before. You know, the pandemic has really accelerated that. I really want to ask your experience across the Middle East and in the emerging markets in general. How is this public-private sector dialogue really developing, and where do you see the future?
Well, I will thank you for the question, and I have to start with the statement that, to be honest, public-private partnership in the healthcare sector has been there for a long time. And the fact that it needs more focus and there are more way to go is true. But the fact that it existed, and actually it existed across many sectors in the room as well. So I see public-private relationship is everywhere, and the partnership exists in defense, in energy, and I don't want to, in aviation, of course. So I don't want to miss any sector, but it is truly there. But the difference that we have seen over the last particular 2 years is the zoom that has made up in the entire region and globally on the importance of the public-private partnership. Let me take you, for example, on the first example, that without this effective public-private partnership, you wouldn't have a vaccine here today. So it's true that the private sector and the healthcare companies are the ones who invest the most in developing new technologies in order to bring that to the world. But without the regulator, without the approval, those innovations wouldn't come to life. So what we have seen, and it was unprecedented in the history of healthcare, by the way, that the regulators come and partner strongly with the healthcare sector and with the pharmaceutical companies to grant them, for example, something we call it always emergency use authorization, like bring it, use it, we will be open, and we will work with you. So we have seen an incredible openness and ability to exchange the data between the private sector and the public, which we haven't done before. And that bridges the gap, and I will give you the number, of from 3 to 5 years, which is an average duration, and obviously you know that we couldn't tolerate it anymore, to only a few weeks to bring innovation to people who are in need of it. And thanks to such effective partnership, we're here today, because we were able to connect again, because we're vaccinated, and we were able to connect with each other, and thanks to such incredible level of change that we have seen. Take it to a different dimension. Even if you would have bring the innovation, you still need the supply chain, right? You need a concrete and a complete ecosystem of bringing that innovation swiftly to the patients or the people in need. And we have seen a concrete example, and thanks to the leadership of the UAE, which put a vision towards building Hope Consortium, which we saw it in Abu Dhabi, which doesn't exist anywhere else, by the way, which created a hub where the government and the private sector, from different levels, from the provider, from the manufacturer, from the developer and the storage, from the complete ecosystem, to create the availability of those millions of doses of vaccines available to 3 to 4 billion people within 3 to 4 hours. So it's another concrete example of how the mindset is being shifted, and the fact that the government did not do it alone, the private did not do it alone. So we have seen such transformation. And if I call something, and potentially this is one of the first time that I share the story, is I'm really inspired by the leadership within the UAE, and a true story that I'm going to share with you guys. Few years, potentially something like 5 to 6 years before the eruption of the COVID vaccines, we received a call from the leadership of the UAE asking us to start thinking of strategic stock of medicines. And you all know it, most of the hubs of the distribution for the pharmaceutical products exist in Dubai. So the first minute that I received this request, why? I mean, you already have the hub, and we literally distribute to the whole Middle East from the UAE. Why do you need to build a strategic stock, and why should they commit to 6 months availability of stocks of medications in the country? Everything is good. We have a good supply chain, they produce, they bring it here. We don't have really true mandate or a burning platform to build that initially. But to be honest, the leadership in the UAE insisted on it. And they said, you want to be a true partner, let's partner in that, and let's have 6 months stock in here. Time passes by. I'm a resident here, proudly resident of the UAE. My family is here, and you all come through the COVID-19. Few weeks down from COVID-19, people started to worry about 2 things. Going to the supermarket quickly to make sure that we have enough supply. What will happen to my medication if the supply chain stopped or there's no shipment? And guess what? UAE had secured the locals and the residents for 6 months supply, and the famous quote for His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed when he said, "La tshilun ham," don't worry. That was not a word, guys. That was a word that is completely backed up by a full work and dedication, and I would say simply a word, leadership. Because this is how I envision leadership. So, to be honest, put all of these factors together, the incredible change that we have seen in the technology on one side and the approval, the level of the innovation that we have seen on getting the private and the public to put together a vision to secure people are residing here. So to be honest, I'm really happy with what I've seen today. And again, reimagining the future is mission possible.
Thank you, Mr. Ayman. I think just to add to you, that's why the UAE was just recently announced as the 5th best place to live worldwide, you know, and this is a global study. So it is down to the leadership, it's down to the inclusion that the country has created, and now we need the private sector to also follow suit, because the government have really made all these developments both in Dubai and Abu Dhabi and the rest of the Emirates as well. I know we're running out of time. I've just got a few questions if the audience want to ask. Any questions, Jesse?
Let's get a mic over to you. Yes, we have one question.
Yeah.
We have about 5 minutes left, so it's good timing.
Hello, it's working?
Yes,
Good
it
day
is.
to you. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. I may sound less woke, but I really have a question. How can we avoid falling into another trap and into another unfairness? Because instead of selecting like really the most gifted, the hard-working, talented kids in schools or employees at work, we need to think about filling the gaps and filling this, you know, the standard, like based on gender and religion and color and race. So when you have, for example, a really leadership and really leaders in, I mean, even in schools, now instead of thinking about and promoting these kids, you need to think that you need to give a place for other kids based on, you know, not on their merits, not on their hard work, but just because they belong to a certain group that you need to promote. This creates another unfairness, in my opinion. And this also, you know, gives a very convenient tool for people to manipulate. Because I can easily tell you, oh, you did not select me because I'm a woman, Russian, I don't know, Christian, and this and that. So how to balance this? On the one hand, I am a great believer in education and promotion and fairness, but on the other hand, we may just run from one unfairness into another unfairness.
Thank you for your question. Thank you for your question. Dr. Rosanna, I know you're keen in answering that, so go ahead.
Okay, no, I'm happy to answer that. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So look, I think what we really have to consider here is what we're talking about, as we've already said, is equity, creating environments where we have equity, so everybody has got an equal opportunity to achieve their best. Okay, and what we're not talking about, or certainly I'm not talking about in terms of the work that we do at Palladium, is creating extra, better or special chances for people. Because actually, my personal belief is that that actually doesn't benefit individuals. It doesn't benefit the person who's the woman or the person from the ethnic minority group. It doesn't benefit the organization, and it certainly doesn't benefit the cause of promoting equity, diversity and inclusion. So what that can also take us down the road of when we take this approach is this tokenistic approach, where people then start to say, well, we just need X number of women and X number of people from this group. And again, this is something that I'm certainly not aligned with, and we're not aligned with this at Palladium. What we need to do as organizations is educate our people to really understand, and I know I've mentioned it a couple of times already, is the business case for equity, diversity and inclusion. And raise the bar on understanding that when you make things equitable for women and you make things equitable for people from ethnic minority groups or whatever group that we're referring to, you actually raise the bar and the standards for everybody. Okay, so we were involved in a conversation earlier, and I heard people talking about sort of parental leave or maternity leave. You know, if we take that as an example, it's not just women who want to have time off to spend with their families. Men want to as well. So when organizations introduce policies that enable that to happen, then you get happier employees. And if people are happier, they're more productive, you get more work out of them, and we know that having equitable and diverse teams helps to improve the bottom line. So, you know, I'm very firmly in the camp of we don't want to replace one inequality with another. What we're talking about is not reducing standards. We're talking about creating an environment where people are not discriminated against because of an irrelevant characteristic. What we're looking at is creating organizations where organizations understand why it makes business sense to promote equity, diversity and inclusion, as well as being the right thing to do.
Thank you, Dr. Rosanna.
I just need to add something,
Yeah.
sorry.
Sorry, you want to add? Sorry.
Because I faced the same what you faced previously. Like, my son, from day one, he's under medication. So whenever I take him to a school, he feels he's different. So he always say, unfair, why I'm different than the rest. When I have a friend from worldwide, different country, different religion, and usually people think why this religion, this nationality, why the background, the knowledge, my child. And two things I will tell you, we are in a country, everyone is equal. It's not because I'm from United Arab Emirates or from Dubai. Here you can feel your home, and nothing called that is different. Second thing, we need to start from home to educate our son and ourselves that everyone is equal. I teach my son to respect the woman because tomorrow I want him to respect whatever his wife or maybe his daughter or his colleague, her choice. So I think we need to start, when we're talking about organization, we need to talk about the home organization. We start from home. So I think we have to stand and say, it's not unfair from us, it's unfair from others. They judge whatever they want to judge, but believe in yourself and let them judge what they want. I think we need to talk about diversity and gender equality and everything. It should start from home. When we start, everyone who's sitting today or listening virtual, like, we change the way we educate our mentality and connect our heart. We respect everyone. I think this should be starting before the real organization or any company. So I think all of us today, we learned something. We need to implement in our family as well in our career. So you should forget something called unfair. Trust yourself and what is surrounding. Maybe 1% there are negative people in your life, and remember that there are 99% worldwide, they believe in you.
Thank you for that, Dr. Suaad. I think Just before we wrap up, this conversation has really flown by. I mean, I'd like to thank all the panelists today for sharing their diverse perspectives. And like Dr. Suaad said, diversity, equity, inclusion is everyone's responsibility, from the grassroots levels at home. And whether it's any industry that we've talked about today, it requires public and private sector support and real commitment from every single person to overcome their inherent biases to really move things forward. And I'd like to say, Dr. Kindah, everyone likes a winner, and we're here in the UAE in this expo, which is a world-class event. And these type of discussions, I hope, will enrich the debate and really create sustainability beyond today. And I hope we can engage in these conversations furthermore in the future. So thank you all today for joining us. I'd like to thank the people here in this room and those who also virtually who have joined us. And I'd like you to enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.